I paid for the whole dinner. I even called the restaurant twice the week before to make sure they had the vegan appetizer my sister liked. I picked the flower arrangements myself, white tulips, soft lavender. I used the last bit of my savings to make the night beautiful for her. Not for me. Never for me. My name is Clara. I'm 35 years old. I work in publishing. Most days I proofread other people's dreams. I go home to a small apartment in Chicago, filled with books and a second-hand couch I once said I'd replace, but never did. I live quietly. I show up on time. I answer messages quickly. I never ask for anything twice. Last night, I hosted a family dinner to celebrate my little sister Lily's engagement. She's 28, radiant, and as my parents like to remind me, the one who gives us something to be proud of. I don't correct them anymore. It's not worth it. I arrived early to the restaurant. I wore a navy dress with a high neckline. Nothing flashy. Just enough to blend in. I checked the reservation again. Confirmed the candles were lit. The server nodded politely and left me standing in the soft glow of the private room. 10 minutes later, they arrived. My mother in her pearl earrings, my father in the blazer I bought him last Christmas, and Lily in a pink satin blouse that shimmered under the lights. She looked beautiful. She always does. They didn't say thank you. Not right away. Clara, my mother said, setting her purse down with a sigh, I told you white tulips make my allergies act up. That sentence burned. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was so expected. She never opened with gratitude. You always overdo things, she added. You don't need to try so hard. That one sliced deeper. My efforts were a performance to them, not a gift. My father squinted at the menu. Did you really have to pick such an expensive place? Each word hit like a reminder that generosity was a burden unless it came from someone they approved of. I'm sure it's all on Clara, Lily said, without looking at me. She insists on doing everything. My chest tightened. The way she said it, it wasn't praise, it was irritation, like my love was inconvenient. I hope you didn't use your rent money for this, my mother said. The implication was clear. I was reckless, over-emotional. I resented how quickly she turned my kindness into a flaw. My father raised his glass. Well, here's to Lily. The first one getting married. Finally something to celebrate. Not a toast for all of us. Just her. Just the one who mattered. Lily laughed. Clara, you're next, right? Her voice was sharp with sarcasm. Everyone knew I wasn't dating. It wasn't a joke. It was a jab, and I felt it land. You look responsible, she added, finally making eye contact. Responsible. Not beautiful. Not radiant. Just a word that meant useful. Like a dish rag. Let's hope the wedding colors aren't as boring as this room, my mother muttered. My heart sank. I chose everything in this room. My father leaned in. You always take things so seriously, Clara. Loosen up. He didn't know the tension he caused was the reason I was always braced. I'm just glad Lily didn't let you plan the wedding, my mother said. The job was casual, but my insides twisted. I'd been organizing their lives for years. Lily scrolled through her phone. Let's not make this about Clara tonight, okay? That one did it. They weren't just dismissing me. They were erasing me. Then dessert came. The table fell quiet. My father leaned back and said, Clara, about the wedding. I looked up. I'd been stirring my coffee. You've done a lot, he continued. And we're grateful. But we think it's best if you don't come. My spoon stopped. My stomach didn't. I felt like I was being told to leave my own home. What? It's not personal, my mother chimed in, smoothing her napkin. It's just, you make things heavy. Lily needs light. This is her time. Lily didn't look at me. She didn't look at anything. I paid for your flowers, I said softly. The ones you picked. And that's enough, my father replied. You've done your part. My hands went cold. Not from the coffee. From the weight. You're not needed there, Clara, my mother added. It's enough if you just pay for it. That sentence turned something inside me into ash. I laughed. Quietly. The kind of laugh you let out when your soul has gone still. My chair scraped back from the table. No one moved. I walked to the host stand, settled the bill with my card. The waiter blinked. I didn't explain. What could I say? That I was funding a celebration I wasn't allowed to attend? As I waited for the receipt, I looked over at the table. My family, smiling again, laughing now that the tension was gone. I realized they weren't uncomfortable because they hurt me. They were uncomfortable because I existed in the room with them. And maybe they were right. Maybe I did make things heavy. Maybe the weight of all the years I carried them finally made me impossible to include. Maybe they preferred me as the shadow that held up their spotlight. When I stepped outside, the city was wet and cold. A spring rain had started. I didn't have an umbrella, but I didn't rush. I let the rain hit my skin like it could wash their words off me. But nothing could. All the way home, my phone stayed silent. Not one message. Not a single apology. Back in my apartment, I changed into sweats. Sat on my secondhand couch. Let the silence fill the space they never visited. My fingers trembled. Not from cold. From clarity. From the sudden, sharp truth that I had never been part of their celebration, only its foundation. I had paid for the wine, the flowers, the laughter. I had bought the room and filled it with peace so they could tear it apart in comfort. And in return, they gave me exclusion wrapped in politeness. You're not needed there. It echoed. Over and over. Like a song written just for me. At 2 a.m., I opened the group chat of a Taylor Swift fan forum I quietly followed. A small place. Kind people. We mostly shared photos, lyrics, old concert memories. I typed out the story, raw and unfiltered, and almost deleted it twice before I hit send. I didn't ask for advice. I didn't want pity. I just wanted to be seen. Even by strangers. Especially by strangers. And someone did see. But that's for later. For now, I sat in the dark. Rain outside. Tea going cold. A table for one. The place I never had. And for the first time, I started to wonder what life would be like if I stopped buying a seat at tables that didn't want me. Sleep didn't come. Not really. I closed my eyes, but my thoughts stayed loud. Every word from that dinner repeated itself, not in voices anymore, but in sensations. Their sentences weren't echoes, they were bruises. It started with the silence in the car, the kind that feels deliberate, like a verdict. My mother sat in the passenger seat of my father's car, flipping through her phone. Lily was in the back seat beside me, humming a song I didn't recognize, something light and cheerful. It made me feel like my grief was out of place. I watched the headlights stretch across the rain-soaked streets. We passed the florist where I'd picked the tulips. I remembered agonizing over whether she'd like the lavender accent. That now felt humiliating. Not just unnecessary, but absurd. I designed a dinner they couldn't wait to leave. That word, heavy. You make things heavy, Clara. The words weren't cruel in tone, but that was what made them worse. They didn't say it like they hated me. They said it like they were tired of carrying the weight of pretending to include me. I've been called dependable, responsible, strong, but I've never once been called cherished. My chest ached with memories that came crashing in without permission. I was 10, standing at the edge of a school recital. Lily forgot her ballet shoes. I gave up my spot in the audience to run home and get them. She danced. My seat stayed empty. I watched from behind the curtain. I was 14, babysitting her while our parents went out. I missed a movie night my only friend had invited me to. When I told my mother, she said, "Friendships come and go. But family needs you." The resentment sat there like a stone. I learned early that my needs came last. I was 18, getting my acceptance letter. Columbia University. I walked into the kitchen, letter in hand, glowing. Lily had a stomachache. My mom waved me off. "Can you handle dinner? I need to help your sister." I didn't even get to tell them I got in. I just turned and started chopping onions. I've replayed that moment too many times. Every time I did what they needed. Every time, I erased myself a little more. I was a shadow. A wall, the invisible frame that held up their memories. And the longer I stayed silent, the more they painted me out of the picture entirely. I thought about the family photo from Lily's Sweet 16. I took it. I wasn't in it. I remembered birthdays. Mine, mostly quiet affairs with store-bought cake and a card signed in my father's looping, distant handwriting. Hers? Full weekends of celebration, custom decorations, and professional photographers. It was never said out loud, but it was always there. A language of omissions. Lily was loved just for being. I was tolerated if I earned it. Even then, just barely. Resentment wasn't a sharp thing. It was slow. Heavy. Like rain on soaked fabric. It clung. It stayed. Back at my apartment, I opened my laptop. Not to work. Just to feel the light of the screen. I didn't know what to do with the emptiness in my chest. I clicked through old emails. Birthday reminders. Payment confirmations for gifts I sent. Flights I booked. Rent I helped cover. Grocery money. Lily's phone bill once. I remembered those conversations. Always last minute. Always urgent. Always followed by silence afterward. Lily had never thanked me for her share of the apartment I helped pay when she was in college. Our parents said, she's still finding her way. I found my way early. I had to. No one cleared a path for me. I carved it out alone, every time. Even that night, I hadn't eaten much at dinner. I didn't have an appetite after the 4th or 5th jab. I had tried to find the courage to say something, but the words froze in my throat. My family didn't shout. They didn't scream. But they dismissed me with such practiced indifference, it was louder than rage. I had done so much, paid for so much, sacrificed so much, and I was still considered too much. I picked up an old photo frame from my shelf. A family trip to Michigan. I was 15. I took the photo. I wasn't in it. Again. I used to think being left out was circumstantial, situational. But it wasn't. It was systemic. They needed me quiet, generous, predictable, unquestioning. They needed me to remain the emotional donor, constantly transfusing love into a body that gave nothing back. It's not personal, they said. It was only ever personal. I sat at the edge of my bed, the city still humming outside. A siren in the distance. A dog barked. The radiator hissed. Life moved on, without caring that mine felt like it just cracked down the middle. I opened the group chat again. The Swifties. A safe space. Some faces I didn't know, but their kindness was real. I typed without overthinking. Tonight, I paid for a dinner to celebrate my sister's wedding. She's getting married next month. At dessert, they told me not to come. That I wasn't needed. That I should just pay. And I realized it wasn't a mistake. It was how they've always seen me. I added no emojis. No exclamation marks. I didn't soften it. I posted and shut the laptop. Then I cried. Not the dramatic kind. Not loud or ugly. The quiet tears. The kind that come from a place beyond disappointment, past exhaustion. Where grief and recognition shake hands. I grieved the family I thought I had. The sister I thought might someday look back and say thank you. The mother I imagined would one day hug me without critique. The father who might see me, not as an obligation, but as a daughter. They weren't cruel by their standards. That's what made it so devastating. To them, this was normal. To me, it was erasure. I made tea. Let it sit too long. It went cold. Like most things I gave them. Then I lit a candle not for ambience, but for company. I needed something warm to look at. Something that didn't ask me to dim. And I started writing, not in a journal. On scraps of paper. Napkins. Post-its. I wrote phrases that came from deep within. I am not invisible. My care is not currency. I deserve joy that doesn't cost me my dignity. At sunrise, I opened the curtains. The rain had stopped. The sky was pale gray, like a blank page. And I thought, maybe I'll stop writing them into every chapter. Maybe it's time for a story that doesn't ask me to disappear. Maybe the place I never had doesn't exist in their world. but maybe I can build it. For me. Just me. And maybe that's enough. The morning after the realization settled into my bones, I didn't move for a long time. The tea from the night before still sat beside my bed. Cold. Untouched. Like me. I didn't open my messages. I knew there wouldn't be any. No apologies. No questions. Just more silence, the language my family spoke best when I was hurting. I got up. Not because I wanted to, but because routine was the only thing that still belonged to me. I showered, dressed, and made breakfast I didn't eat. My hands moved, but my heart didn't. Everything I touched felt distant, like I was performing my life from outside my body. Around noon, the clouds outside opened slightly. Pale light filtered through the blinds. I watched the dust float in the air and wondered when I stopped believing my place in their world could ever shift. Maybe I had known all along. Maybe I'd just buried it under effort, generosity, and relentless hope. That afternoon, my phone buzzed. It wasn't them. It was someone from the Taylor Swift fan group. Her name was Jessica. Her message was short. Hey Clara, I shared your post in another group. A few of us were really moved. Hope that's okay. One of them asked if you'd be open to talking. Nothing weird, just a safe space. I stared at the message. I didn't know what to say. I'd only shared to breathe, not to be seen. But I typed sure. Thank you, and sent it. 2 hours later, another message came. This time, from someone named Marla. The message started with, "You don't know me, but your stories sounded like mine." Then came another. And another. Stories of quiet daughters. Overlooked sisters. Always dependable. Never invited. Never chosen. I read them all. Every word cracked something open in me. They talked about being told they were too serious, too sensitive, too much. About being expected to sacrifice and scolded when they hoped for even the smallest return. Their grief mirrored mine. Their shame was familiar. And then, the unthinkable happened. A message from someone claiming to be with Taylor Swift's team. I thought it was a joke. Or spam. But the tone was gentle, human. "We saw your story. Taylor did too. It moved her. She's working on a new project about family dynamics, respect, and unspoken grief. She'd like to talk to you. If you're willing." My first thought wasn't excitement. It was fear. Fear that I wasn't special enough. Fear that, like my family, they'd look closer and decide I wasn't worth it. But I said yes, because something inside me, tired, sore, but still alive, said this mattered. A week later, I sat in a quiet studio. Soft lights, a camera crew that asked my pronouns and offered me tea. And then there she was. Taylor. She greeted me not like a celebrity, but like someone who already knew what had been taken from me. She didn't ask about the dinner. Not right away. She said, "When did you first feel invisible?" And I broke. Not dramatically. Not in sobs. Just a slow collapse of a lifetime I had carried without complaint. I told her about Lily's birthdays. About the photo I was never in. About Colombia. About the text messages asking for money. About the silence that always followed my giving. I told her about the dinner. The tulips. The words, "You're not needed. Just pay." And when I finished, she didn't interrupt the silence. She let it sit. That silence felt more respectful than anything my family had ever said to me. The interview was honest. Clean. No sensationalism. Just truth. And when it aired, something unexpected happened. People listened. Not everyone. Not perfectly. But thousands of messages poured in. Letters. DMs. Tweets. People who said they saw themselves in my story. That they cried. That they felt less alone. One message stayed with me. It read, "Your story didn't make me angry. It made me brave." But the real moment came on the day of the wedding. I wasn't there. Of course not. I hadn't been invited, but I saw the photos. There were none. A follower from my fan group messaged me that morning. "Clara, I think your story did something big. No one showed up to your sister's wedding." I didn't understand. What do you mean? I typed. She replied, guests canceled. Vendors backed out. People who saw the interview, they knew. They didn't want to be part of it. I tried to picture it. The hall, the empty seats, the untouched cake, the quiet, heavy with absence. I imagined my mother's expression, confused at first, then furious. My father pacing, silent and fuming. Lily standing in her dress, waiting for applause that never came. And then the phone rang. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice, when it came through, was tight, controlled, but she couldn't hide the tremble. You've embarrassed us. You've ruined what should have been Lily's happiest day. What kind of daughter does this? There it was again. That word, daughter, used only when it suited them, when they needed me to fall back into line. I listened to it once. Then I deleted it. That night, I sat by my window. Rain tapped the glass. A soft, persistent rhythm. I remembered that dinner. Their faces. Their words. I thought I'd feel vindicated. But I didn't. I felt, still, not at peace. Not yet, but no longer at war with myself. I made tea. The water was warm. I drank it slowly. For the first time, I didn't rehearse what I would say to them if they reached out. I didn't craft the perfect explanation. I didn't long for understanding. They called me cruel. They always would. But for once, I hadn't betrayed myself to make them comfortable. For once, I chose me. And in that quiet, in that stillness, I started to understand that maybe that was enough. The voicemail didn't surprise me. The words did. Or maybe it was how little they hurt now. You've embarrassed us. You've ruined what should have been Lily's happiest day. What kind of daughter does this? That line played in my head throughout the next week. It wasn't guilt that echoed. It was resentment. Not because I had destroyed something, but because I had refused to keep building it for them. They hadn't noticed the way I bled to hold everything together. But they noticed when I stopped. That was the only time they called me a daughter. Not when I fixed their finances. Not when I stayed late after work to pick up a gift Lily forgot. Not when I gave up vacations so I could cover a broken appliance or a rent shortage. But now, when their illusion cracked, suddenly I was their daughter. Their responsibility. Their disappointment. The irony wasn't lost on me. The internet was loud. Articles quoted the interview. Think pieces about emotional labor and invisible siblings began circulating. Some used my name. Some didn't. I didn't mind. I wasn't hiding. I received dozens of messages each day. Many were kind. Some were raw. A few were angry, accusing me of exaggerating, of weaponizing sympathy. But I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to explain. Not anymore. Then the second voicemail came. My father this time. Clara, you've made your point. Your sister is devastated. Your mother can't sleep. This isn't how families solve things. He paused before hanging up, like he expected me to step in and finish the conversation. Like I always had. I didn't. Because I finally realized that my silence had become louder than anything I could say. A few days later, an email came from Lily. Short. Cold. I hope you're proud. You got what you wanted. Congrats on being famous. That line struck deeper than I expected. Not because it hurt, but because it was so disconnected from the truth. I didn't want fame. I wanted family. I wanted to be loved out loud, not leveraged in silence. And the truth that burned brightest wasn't that I had exposed them. It was that they had exposed themselves. My story had simply been the mirror. They didn't like their reflection. A few interview requests followed. I declined most. I didn't want to become a spectacle. I wanted the conversation to live on, but I didn't want to be devoured by it. Still, Taylor's project kept growing. More people came forward. More stories surfaced. More masks fell. That gave me peace in a way I hadn't expected. I took a walk one evening. No destination. Just movement. The air was crisp. The sidewalks wet from an earlier drizzle. And as I walked past the bakery Lily used to love, I remembered all the times I stood there, buying her favorites. She never remembered mine. That contrast used to feel like failure. Now it just felt like fact. My therapist once told me, clarity isn't cruel. It's clean. And, for the first time, I understood that. My family was unraveling. Not because I tore anything apart, but because I stopped weaving the lies back together. My mother began writing Facebook posts. Vague ones. About betrayal. About daughters who forget loyalty. People sent me screenshots. I never responded. Then she escalated. Tagged me. Public comments about how painful it is to raise a child who turns against you. Again, people sent them to me. Again, I stayed silent. They weren't posts for conversation. They were performances for sympathy. They weren't reaching out. They were reaching around me, trying to regain control of the story. But it wasn't theirs anymore. And I wasn't theirs either. I didn't feel cruel. I felt clean. Then came the letter. Handwritten. No return address. I opened it carefully, expecting more blame. But it wasn't from them. It was from a woman in Arizona. Her name was Grace. She wrote, I watched your interview with my daughter. She's 12. She turned to me and said, I don't want to make people small so I can feel big. Thank you for showing her that kindness doesn't mean invisibility. I cried. Not out of pain. Out of release. Like something long tangled in me had finally found a way to loosen. My phone kept buzzing. But this time I didn't rush to check. I didn't owe them urgency anymore. I didn't owe them access. My boundary wasn't a wall, it was a doorway I could close. One night, they tried to show up. My parents. At my building. The doorman called me. Said they were downstairs. I said, please ask them to leave. I hung up. My hands shook. But not from fear. From strength. My body remembered what it felt like to protect itself. 10 minutes later, a text from my father. We came to fix things. But you wouldn't even let us try. I didn't reply. Because what they wanted wasn't resolution. It was redemption. On their terms. Through my compliance. And I was done being their canvas. A few days after that, Lily posted on social media. A long post about how hard it is to be misunderstood. She never used my name, but every word pointed to me. She painted herself as gracious. As hurt. As the real victim. What struck me most was the number of people who commented with praise. You're so strong. You handled this with grace. Some people can't stand seeing others happy. I didn't respond. I didn't counter it with facts. Because anyone who truly knew me, or wanted to, already saw through it. She hadn't lost her wedding because of me. She lost it because of the way they treated me. The truth has a way of arriving, even without a spotlight. Then another letter arrived. This time from a high school classmate. We hadn't spoken in years. She wrote, I watched the interview. I remember how you always let others go first. How you stayed quiet even when you deserved the credit. I see you now. I'm sorry I didn't then. I held the letter for a long time. It reminded me that sometimes acknowledgement comes late. But it still matters. And then came the news. Taylor's project would become a series. Real stories. Real people. A platform for the unseen. She asked if I'd return not to revisit my pain, but to mentor others finding their voices. I said yes. Not for revenge. But for the girl I used to be. The one who thought being needed was the same as being loved. Now I knew better. Now I was free. I didn't plan to feel joy. I thought if freedom ever came, it would arrive quietly, perhaps with relief, or maybe even sorrow. But not joy. And yet one morning, while watering the small plant on my windowsill, I caught myself humming. Not a song I knew. Just a soft, unconscious melody. It was light. It was real. A letter had come the night before. From a girl in Oregon. She was 17. Her handwriting shaky, her words steady. You don't know me, she wrote, but I saw you. I mean, really saw you. I think I would have kept trying to make them proud forever. But now, I think I'll try being kind to myself instead. Thank you for showing me I'm allowed. Her words folded over me like a blanket. Not heavy, just warm. And I knew then, I had done something that reached beyond survival. I had become a path. Of course, the pressure didn't stop. The messages from my family came in waves. One from my mother, after weeks of silence. "You're still our daughter, no matter what." She always said that when she wanted to guilt me back into orbit. I used to feel conflicted hearing those words, like I had to prove I deserved them. Now, I just felt tired. Because I knew what came next. The attempts to pull me back, framed as invitations. Invitations to abandon myself again. I didn't reply. Another message from Lily. "Maybe we both made mistakes." That one made me pause. I almost responded. Not because it was fair, but because part of me still wanted reconciliation. But reconciliation requires acknowledgement. And that message, vague and even, wasn't acknowledgement. It was a rewrite. I left it unread. I started keeping a journal. Not to track pain anymore, but to notice peace. The first page read, "Today I opened my windows. The breeze smelled like rain and something sweet, maybe lilacs. I made tea and finished it while it was still hot. I read books I never made time for. Cooked meals that didn't require applause. Walked without my phone. Let silence be silence, not tension." The first week, I kept flinching, half expecting some emotional ambush. But nothing came. Only more quiet. More breath. One afternoon, while walking through a small park, a woman tapped my shoulder. "Are you Clara?" I nodded. She smiled, warm, kind. "Your story, it helped me leave a very old hurt behind." I just wanted to say thank you. We stood there for a second too long. Two strangers bound by understanding. That evening, I made a small dinner. For myself. I lit a candle. Not to make anything look pretty, just to see something glow. It flickered gently, like a heartbeat. The quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like space I had earned. I went back to Taylor's project, this time not as the girl who cried in an interview, but as a woman who could listen without dissolving. I sat beside others who were ready to speak and told them, "You're not alone. You never were. They just convinced you were." Every time someone shared their story, I remembered a version of myself I had outgrown. Not forgotten. Just released. It felt good to be trusted. To hold space instead of pain. My family continued their own narrative. They talked to distant relatives. They softened the details. They said I had been under stress. That I'd been emotional. That everything had been blown out of proportion. It didn't matter. Because I didn't need them to rewrite their story. I had already written mine. Sometimes I'd dream of them. Not nightmares. Just strange, quiet dreams where we sat in rooms filled with unspoken things. I'd wake up with a pang. Not longing, just recognition. I would have loved them forever if they let me. I just couldn't keep doing it while disappearing. They never apologized. Not really. Not directly. And I never went back. The last thing I did was change my emergency contact form. It used to be my mother. Now it's my friend Nia. She's the one who brings soup when I'm sick. Who sends book recs without asking. Who saw me when I was invisible. That's love. Real love doesn't require you to shrink. Real love doesn't punish your boundaries. Real love lets you rest. And I rested. One night, months later, I was cleaning out a drawer and found an old photo. Lily and I, much younger. She's smiling. I'm blurry, half turned, half gone. I didn't cry. I just placed it in a small box marked before. I lit another candle. Made another cup of tea. Sat at the window with a blanket around my shoulders. Outside, the street was quiet. A few lights in neighboring windows. Distant music. Inside, I felt warmth. Not from anyone else. From me. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone to return something I never received. I was no longer the scaffolding for someone else's comfort. I was the place. The place I never had. And I had built it for myself.